The Witness is a game of increasing layers of subtlety. As a player, full appreciation and understanding requires making breakthroughs. The first breakthrough that must be made is perhaps the most daunting and yet the most profound. On the surface, The Witness appears to be a bore. See, most mainstream games have what you would call a hook. This is also sometimes called the it factor, or just marketability. It's essentially a surface-level appeal which the game has in order to excite players to play it immediately.
This is a game about slaying dragons in a fantasy setting inspired by Norse culture. Prepare to die, you bitch.
Hell yeah.
This is a game about drawing lines through mazes.
I don't know, this doesn't really seem like my kind
No, trust me, it's really interesting.
Okay.
Wait, this is the good part. Oh yeah. See, The Witness is almost the opposite. It has what you might call an anti-hook. In fact, the more videos that you show someone of the game, the less interesting it seems. But saying that The Witness must be boring because it's just a bunch of maze puzzles is like saying that a book has to be boring because it's just a bunch of words. It's a judgment that's based upon a true observation, but nonetheless it misses the entire point. In The Witness, the point is not the maze puzzles, but what they lead you to think about. The game uses this simple premise as a lens to explore complex and subtle ideas about the way in which we look at and interact with the world around us. Let's talk about nonverbal communication. So what is it? Simply enough, it's exactly what it sounds like. Communication without using words.
I can't understand a word you're saying. You have a thing in your mouth.
It's not a particularly new idea. In fact, we all do it almost every day without even thinking about it. We communicate many aspects of our moods and inner thoughts through body language. Additionally, nonverbal communication is pretty common in the arts. For centuries, paintings and music have been able to effectively express ideas and emotion without words. In film, visual storytelling techniques are also used to communicate subtle ideas. For example, the way in which a simple scene of characters talking is staged can imply loads of things about the emotional context without even being able to, or needing to, hear the actors speak. When it comes to games, nonverbal communication isn't really that new either. Because all other art forms are capable of being embedded into video games, many games choose to simply borrow the tools of those mediums. However, there are nonverbal techniques which games are uniquely capable of. Perhaps the most commonly used of these techniques is called environmental storytelling. This is where objects found around the player in the environment are used to convey a story. Although it often devolves into messages scrawled in blood upon the walls and skulls left in toilets, it can sometimes be an effective technique for communicating simple story ideas without the need for cumbersome expository dialogue or reams of text. Another nonverbal technique which is entirely unique to games is conveyance. Conveyance is when a game communicates something to the player entirely through gameplay. Games have used this technique at least as far back as the original Super Mario Bros. Smart use of conveyance can teach players how to play in a way that's both more engaging and more memorable than reading pages of instructions. Although teaching the player how to play the game is the most commonly observed form of conveyance, there are other possibilities with the technique that do not relate directly to communication of gameplay ideas alone. Some of the early forays into this type of design have used the mechanics of the game itself as a metaphor. For example, in Rod Humble's experimental game The Marriage, the different abstract shapes and the responses to player input are used to represent the dynamics of the creator's marriage. Most games using mechanical metaphor are quite small, but there are larger games which have utilized the technique. It may be that there is a hard limit to the size and complexity of games that can be made entirely using this approach. Since each mechanic that you add must tie back into the overall meaning, the more mechanics there are in the game, the more difficult it becomes to maintain a coherent metaphor.